All right, everybody, I won't take too much of your time on this intro, just to say that I recorded the entire podcast and my nightmare happened where it did not record the audio because of some other video file that I missed, or audio file that I missed. So luckily I was recording on my iPhone for video, so the audio is just going to be a little bit off today. So anyways, if that's why it sounds weird, don't turn it off. I'll try to edit it the best I can. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in and enjoy the podcast. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Iron Mike podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I wanted to, what I kind of want to kick off with, March 1st. Some of you may be listening on March 2nd or 3rd, but recording this on March 1st. And so I just wanted to kind of dive into, I forgot February's. January I had a great thought of, coming in and doing like a word of the month type thing. And I'm currently going through Gary Vaynerchuk's book, 12 and a half. Leveraging the emotional ingredients necessary for business success. And so this is the book here. I just now finished going through what the 12 and a half kind of basically characteristics of being somebody who's successful, not even really just in business. They're all really good principles and really good characteristics. I've made it through that first half, which is just all explaining the characteristics, explaining pros and cons, kind of where your weaknesses are, things like that. And that's kind of where the 12 and a half comes into play for Gary. It was that half, which is what he needed to grow in, what he needed to be better in was his kind candor. So with a lot of these characteristics, they can very easily be pushovers and things like that. January's word, or the first word in the book, is gratitude. And so I've talked a little bit about that and just how difficult it is to be in a bad place, how difficult it is to be feel so many negative emotions when gratitude is at the forefront of who you are and what you want to be and what you want to encompass, and just realizing what all God's provided for you when you wake up every morning and take a look at all those sorts of things. And it's really tough to dwell on kind of that negative side of things. But for February, which I never posted about, self-awareness was the second word. I think this is something that a lot of people lack in, having that ability to read the room, have that ability to be aware of yourself and kind of where those flaws and things kind of come in, being able to kind of notice how you're affecting people, how you're reacting, and how your behaviors and things like that can affect the people around you. So just kind of having that self-awareness to see when you're the problem, when things need to change, when how you're acting needs to change. But then for this month, for March, it's accountability. And I think that's huge, especially in the health and fitness space, having that accountability, that person that's going to hold you accountable. Obviously, we do that with our clients. We make sure that, they basically have somebody to answer to now instead of just yourself. Some of the hardest cuts and bulks and things of my life have been when it's just me kind of flying solo, because there's nobody that I have to answer to. I can fudge numbers if I need to, or, if my scale, if I don't weigh in where I need to, things like that, my pictures don't look the way I want them to. There's always something that can be adjusted or fudged or changed when it's only me. But when somebody else has to look at my food logs, if somebody else has to look at my workouts, my consistencies, if I'm meeting somebody at the gym, that accountability really changes and really shifts. Some of the most successful clients I've had, if not only are married couples, people that are doing it together, but even if it's only one spouse that's actually going through our program or that's working with us, they still have that supportive spouse who's helping them grocery shop, who's helping hold them accountable, who's doing workouts with them, getting your kids involved, things like that. That accountability really helps, and I would say exponentially increases your likelihood of success and things like that. And so that accountability in a health and fitness space, but also holding yourself accountable to the decisions you choose, the choices that you make, things like that. I think that accountability really comes into play and kind of ties in with that self-awareness, being self-aware enough to hold yourself accountable and to own up and to take responsibility for your actions and things like that. So yeah, great book. I love it a lot. And now the back half is more on the scenarios and things like that in the workplace. So some of those don't apply directly to me since I'm not really an employee of anybody but myself, but the principles and stuff are still there. And hopefully it's something that, as I hire assistant coaches and things like that underneath me, then these are characteristics that I can possess as a boss. Honestly, most of these, I can just kind of read down the list here. Most of these are characteristics that even a Christian should possess, as far as just, so many of them are just being slow to anger. So many of them are accountability, optimism, empathy, kindness, tenacity, curiosity, patience, conviction, humility, ambition. So many of these things are just characteristics of good people, characteristics that Christians should possess, characteristics that, are going to help you grow and have a business that isn't so much money driven, even though that, obviously that's a component of success, but it's, you want people to work for you. You want people to work with you, and you want, even in friendships, like, being supportive and having, support and ambition and drive and stuff for your friendships, and to help them succeed, and to always, when somebody comes to you with a problem, instead of gossiping about them and talking behind their back, then you have empathy for them and figuring out, why are they acting the way they are? Why are they making the decisions that they are? And I think that's super important, just as being people. And so it's been a great book that I've been able to apply directly into my life and try to make myself a better, coworker, a better husband, a better friend, kind of throughout, and just to channel more of that inner positivity. I'm a very notoriously throughout middle school, high school, college, just always kind of the Debbie Downer guy. And year before last, actually it was right when Allie and I got married. So year and a half now, August of 2020. And, so right in the middle of COVID, you go from that straight into 2021. Pretty much that January, we just kind of realized, or I realized and told her, I was like, all we've been talking about from, August till January is just how negative the world is. You had the politics, you had elections, you had, obviously COVID and things like that. Everybody's just, all their true colors are showing. And so we'd come home from work and such, and, in-person training was, inconsistent. Obviously it was super scary because gyms and things like that showed down. So income super sketchy month to month. That was a big breaking point, and like, all right, I've got to figure out what online looks like, because in-person just isn't consistent enough to provide for not myself anymore, but my wife and my future family. But everything that we talked about was just so negative, and that was kind of the turning point of just trying to shift my mindset, shift who I am as a person, and just to kind of attempt to bring more positivity to situations, and not be that person that's super draining, not be that person that that brings people down, or they walk in a room and that Mike's going to be in a bad mood type thing. I lead worship on Sunday mornings, and so I'm usually a diva when it comes to my ears, and that can totally like ruin my mindset as a worship leader. And we had some rough Christmases and things like that for like programs. I mean, the list goes on of just things that I kind of let snowball in my personal life that really just grew into a lot of bitterness and things like that. And but then just kind of seeing the outcome of that just kind of created a shift in my mind that I didn't want to be that person that contributed to this cluster of negativity. So anyways, great book. Check it out. It's super cheap on Amazon. He's a great guy. A little bit of foul language, so you've got to take that with a grain of salt. But his just ability to inspire people and to care more about the person as opposed to the dollar sign, indirectly has made him very wealthy and very successful, but he just knows hard work, and he loves people. And I think that that's, a huge component to just helping society be better, is just to love people better. And I think that even as Christians, if y'all are listening, we're called to do that anyway. So anyways, there's my tangent, for this episode. It seems to become a common theme, but I think it's good. So a few topics that we're going to dive into today, caloric deficits, overtraining, protein intake, and stuff like that. So the first question I got was, really just what exactly is a calorie deficit, kind of what's the goal with that, and what are some potential pitfalls. So a calorie deficit is simply just being in a negative energy balance. And so whenever you eat, you ingest calories, you ingest energy, and your body needs those calories, needs that for just performing daily tasks. And so that's when you burn calories, is by, it's not even just physical activity. As you'll notice throughout, if you're watching on YouTube, I move my hand almost the entire time that I'm talking. I talk with my hands. And so I'm burning calories throughout doing that, through talking, through oxygen, breathing it in, exhaling. I mean, drinking, tapping, fidgeting, all those things burn calories. Obviously, working out, eating burns calories. About 10% of what you eat in a day through digestion, absorbing nutrients and things like that, about 10% of that accounts for the calories that you burn every day. And so the goal of a calorie deficit and the goal of, you know, weight loss, fat loss, is to be in a calorie deficit. So you want to make sure that you're burning more than you're consuming. At the very baseline, law of thermodynamics, like that is what is going to happen. If you're in a calorie deficit, you are going to lose weight. However, there's a ton of factors that affect the calories that you burn. So if you're too little of or too much of a deficit, to where, you know, you're burning 3,000-4,000 calories a day and you're only eating, you know, 8,000, 1,200, whatever it is, then that can really affect your ability to lose weight, because your body starts to slow down its processes. So whereas I've had plenty of clients that, you know, bumping their calories up from 1,500 to 2,000 actually gives them more energy to want to do other things, to have better workouts, to have the desire to get up a glass of water. It regulates hormones better. So that added 500 calories actually ends up helping them burn, you know, 1,000 more calories. And so they end up losing weight more by eating more, which is a very strange concept for a lot of my clients to understand, which is the benefit of a coach. I can help them, and they don't have to be starving. They're ghrelin, which is your basically signals to your body that you're hungry. It doesn't have to get out of whack, make you hungry all the time. Your recovery is better. There's a lot of benefits to being able to eat. You know, your body needs fuel. You just want to fuel it with the right things and be strategic with that, and make sure that that slow and steady deficit. I know that, you know, the beach is coming in 3 weeks type of deal, and you want to get it off quick, but taking the time to have a game plan ahead. You know, that's why we push to get clients in January. We sign them up for 6 months, and that leads you right up to June. And so that way we've got a whole 6 months to help you develop habits that are going to help you be successful for the long run, that are going to get you beach ready. You know, day one of, you know, end of that 6 months, you're ready without having to starve you. You've built muscle. So women who are trying to get into that swimsuit and look good for their husband or whatever that is, you don't want to be embarrassed. You want to feel confident. Now we can, instead of you just, you know, losing a lot of weight but not really building muscle, so you're still skinny but still have like a little bit of that fat that you wish had gone. Now we have 6 months to put together a game plan that allows you to get strong, build muscle, so have that tone look that you're going for, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what a calorie deficit is. That's the goal usually. That calorie deficit is just to have that fat loss go down. And then the pitfalls, again, kind of just having too aggressive of a fat loss, to where eventually you get to a point where, I mean, if you're at 1,200 calories, you can't go any lower than that. I mean, that's it. And so that's when the reverse dieting comes into play. Maybe I'll do that on a future podcast, kind of dive into what exactly the details of reverse diet is. But basically your metabolism is just running so slow that the only way to kind of boost that back up is to slowly increase your calories, which usually results in a little bit of weight gain. For some people, that's not a bad thing. You've done an incredible diet, you've had an incredible fat loss phase, and you've, you know, reached your goals and then some. The reverse diet is just part of it. Your body needs a break. It's not, your body's built for survival. It's not built to be in a deficit. And so that reverse diet is just super slow and steady. A lot of people use that as their, you know, strength gaining phase. As you're increasing calories, you're lifting heavier, your recovery is better. So you really put on a lot of muscle during that time as you reverse dieting up. So then the next time you lean out, you have more muscle underneath, and all that good stuff. So potential pitfalls is just how slow your metabolism can be when you crash diet. That slowdown occurs a lot more quickly. That metabolic adaptation occurs a lot more quickly. And so your body isn't able to, your body adapts so quickly that you have to reverse diet, or you have to, you know, ramp up your metabolism again before you're able to even reach your weight loss goals. And so that's really tough, especially when you get clients to come in there 220, 230, 250 and up, but they're already eating so little that you're at, as a coach, you're at this crossroads of, man, like, I can't bring your food down any lower. Like, you know, let's try more physical activity and see if that kind of breaks us through. But for a lot of them, it's, hey, you've got to eat more, and then we'll also just move more. And really playing with a lot of those numbers to kind of help them break through those plateaus. Which somewhat leads us into number 2, which is kind of overtraining, the added stress and long-term effects of kind of what that overtraining does. So again, we have a lot of clients come in that are running 10 miles a day. They're also trying to do workouts, 4 or 5 times a week. But then they're also, eating 1,000 to 1,500 calories, and they're just not losing. They're stuck. It's stubborn, and they're not stubborn. Sometimes they're stubborn, but they're not used to. They don't know. They don't know how important food is for fuel and for getting those kinds of results. And so that overtraining aspect sets in to where your body's just beaten up. Your stress, your hormones, everything's kind of out of whack. And you just don't really have anywhere to go. Your initial mindset is, I'm not working hard enough. So you push harder. So you're going to run 15 miles instead of 10. And so then now you're like, okay, let me add in an extra workout. Our innate mindset is, I've just got to push through. I've got to work hard, which is the opposite of other people who don't lose weight because they only work out once a week. So it's totally different mindset, totally different hurdle for these people. And so for that overtraining, it just kind of ruins everything internally. Really, the biggest thing that it does is it adds so much stress to your body. So you're already in the deficit, which is stressful on your body. You're hitting 4 to 5 workouts a week, and especially if you're doing like circuits, kind of high intensity stuff, again, trying to burn those calories, that's a lot of added stress, poor recovery, and now you're running, 10 to 15 miles a day. On top of that, to try to kind of push through, that's a ton of stress that's hard to recover from, and your body just doesn't have the food or fuel to do that. So it's really just kind of in a sort of shock, is kind of what happens to the body. And so every 100 times out of 100 times when I've increased the food intake for those clients, they've broken through the plateau, no problem. Their performance goes up in the gym, their performance goes up on the run, they feel better, their hunger's better, and they start seeing weight loss. They start seeing that muscle actually start to develop. You've got the fuel to build and repair muscle, and not even just repair it to where it stays the same, but have that positive protein balance to where your muscles build and get stronger. You have the energy and desire to progressive overload. So every week you're getting a little bit stronger, you're doing more reps, whatever that looks like. So there's a lot of benefits to making sure that you're eating and supplementing yourself properly. There's plenty of situations where people are hitting the gym super hard, but they're not eating what they're supposed to afterwards, they're not eating what they're supposed to before. And there's no real game plan to what they're eating, when they're eating, how they're eating. And so I think that, or I know that having that proper nutrition is almost more important than even the gym. People come in and, they hit 10 sets of 10 on just about everything. And I'll talk about that on a future podcast too, on just volume and how you need to be setting up your exercise programs for success. But they just push so hard without eating the proper things, so they don't get the results and they get super frustrated. And so that's what we try to teach our clients, is being able to use that food for fuel, and being able to kind of monitor that overtraining side of things, because it's super easy. It kind of creeps up on you because you just kind of build and build and build, and then one day you wake up and you're going so hard, but you've dropped your calories so low that you're just not able to get those proper benefits. So yeah, and the last thing we're going to talk about today, BCAAs and protein intake. So it goes a little bit into kind of the recovery side that we just talked about. Purpose of those BCAAs and protein intake, when they're necessary, when they're not. So originally this topic, I was going to focus a little bit more on the BCAA side of things, the amino acid supplementation, but we'll kind of add in a little bit of a protein intake focus as well. Let me check and see how long this is running. Not too bad. And so this is something that's kind of come up a lot lately. Actually, I'll dive into the BCAA side of things first. So basically, when your body ingests protein, it breaks it down into amino acids, and those amino acids are used for a lot of different functions in the body. Leucine, isoleucine, and valine are the 3 that are most specifically used for muscle rebuilding, muscle repair, signaling those protein messengers to be able to carry out that process. And so that's where the BCAAs come in. Those are your branched chain amino acids, are those 3. And so that's when a lot of people, they don't know which one to supplement or kind of what the difference is. So amino acids typically are going to be a lot weaker because they're going to have all of your complete spectrum of amino acids. And so they're going to be a lot weaker because it's going to be just a little bit of all of them, as opposed to BCAAs are usually much stronger in those 3. They're specific for muscle building, for recovery, and things like that. So those are usually what I recommend to clients if they're sore, etc. The caveat is that if your protein intake is adequate, the BCAAs are really pretty pointless. All the research kind of backs that. When your protein's adequate, or even in a little bit more than you need, the BCAAs are pointless because you're breaking down that protein into those amino acids. So if anything, I recommend that to clients for runs or long cardio bouts. If you're doing cardio, first thing in the morning, you haven't eaten yet. Little situations like that, it can have a benefit. Honestly, a lot of times I use BCAAs or aminos simply to flavor my water, because you're still going to get hydrated from drinking that, and it's just kind of an added benefit. But as far as, when I worked at GNC, that was 3 years of people coming in, and we're building stacks for people, and there's still benefits to those BCAAs, but it's more of an insurance policy than it is anything else. But if you're eating, 1.2 grams per pound of body weight of protein, like, you're good, you're golden. I know so many people that 300 grams of protein a day they're eating or / drinking, and they're drinking a gallon of aminos, and it's overkill. If you want to throw your money at that, there's no necessarily harm in doing it, but it's definitely not necessary, and even probably showing any sort of benefit. Like I said, the cardio side of things is really the only time that I'll incorporate it, but even then, I don't see any research that shows that it's beneficial to have BCAAs or aminos even during cardio when your protein is where it needs to be. So yeah, that's kind of when they're necessary, when they're not. If you're really struggling with getting your protein in, then I would, supplement with some BCAAs just until you get it to where it needs to be. You can drink that, as your water intake, like I said. But then as your protein gets to, whatever your coach has set for you, whatever you have calculated for yourself, once you're into that number, that range, then you're kind of good from there. So as far as protein intake, I kind of wanted to tack this onto the end here, because we had some people chime in on TikTok to one of Angela's videos, where she made the reference, it's making sure you're getting adequate protein so that not only you recover well, but that as your muscle is rebuilding those micro tears you make from working out, that your protein is adequate enough that you not only repair, but you also rebuild, that you build a little bit stronger, that you don't stay and maintain the same. We want those muscles to grow back bigger than they were prior to that stimulus. That's the whole goal of muscle. Hey, this is a lot of stimulus, it caused some tears. Next time we hit that stimulus, let's be stronger so that it doesn't make these tears as much. And so that's why the progressive overload is so important. When the stimulus stays the same, those micro tears and the damage stops happening, because your body just kind of gets used to that load. And so making sure that you're pushing yourself, getting stronger each time, whether that's more reps, more weight, is super important. But as that stimulus increases, your protein's got to be where it needs to be able to recover well and all of that. And so obviously she got attacked pretty hard by people that think they know what they're doing, or people that are very educated in a specific population. And so if there was anything that, Angela, quote unquote, did not do well, or did not say in the video that she should have, was just the target population. But it's pretty much understood that everybody that we work with wants to lose some fat and build some muscle and get stronger. That's pretty much across the board. You want to build muscle and you want to lose fat. It helps you to be healthier. It helps you to be stronger, functional movements, the whole thing. That's what is a good thing. That doesn't mean you got to be jacked. It means you have to be ripped. It's just to be healthier. You want to be strong, and you want that body fat percentage to be on the lower end. And so got attacked pretty hard. And so that, we were in our team meeting yesterday morning. I was just kind of spewing off facts about protein and muscle protein synthesis, which is, just the act of basically the trigger to your body to, hey, let's repair muscle and things like that. And they're like, you need to make a video on it or talk about it in your podcast or whatever. So I actually do have a video that'll also be coming out on YouTube. It won't be on the podcast, so make sure you go to my YouTube channel. It's just Iron Mike, so you may have to sift through it or check some of my social media profiles to get the link to it. But I go a lot more in depth on the formulas and things like that. But as far as like that protein intake, I did want to kind of chime in just to what causes those muscle protein synthesis spikes. So what are the best ways to trigger that muscle protein synthesis, that making sure your body is in an atmosphere of muscle protein synthesis, of recovery, of building muscle, protein timing, and kind of what causes those spikes. So your biggest spike that you're going to get is from working out, from resistance training. That's where kind of the metabolic window comes into play. You know, everybody, you're taught, you know, the gym bro science that you need a protein shake, you know, 30 minutes post-workout, or basically your workout was a waste. That's pretty well been a debunked myth for a good amount of time now. It's not bad. You can absolutely, you know, have one post-workout, and honestly, a lot of people, that's just easiest. They're going to work after, so they just bring their shake with them. They drink it after. That's me a lot of times. If I've got a client right after I work out, then I'll bring a protein shake with me so that I can drink real quick. But then what the research has kind of come out with is it's more of a door than it is a window. So like an 18 to, originally it went to, you know, an 18 to 36 hour kind of window. That be 36 being like the real upper limit, kind of more of that 18 to 24 is kind of your safe bet. That's where the push-pull leg split became really popular, is because you could hit chest on Monday, then, you know, 18 to 36 hours of it recovering your chest fibers while you're hitting back and you're hitting legs. And so then by the time Thursday rolls around again, your chest is fully healed and ready to be hit. So instead of doing a bro split, which is just body part splits throughout the week and only hitting your chest once a week, now you're hitting it, you know, 2, maybe even 3 times a week, depending on how you divide up your stuff. And so that's somewhat been debunked. Now it comes into more of a weekly volume type thing. And that's in personal preference. There's a lot of different factors there that I won't dive into today, but that kind of, that metabolic window that for recovery and for getting your nutrition in was kind of set to there. Well, then Jeff Nipper did a video pretty recently that now studies really more of a 5 to 6 hour window between your pre-workout meal and your post-workout meal. And so that kind of is like your flexibility, or your little space for getting that post-workout nutrition in. So it doesn't necessarily affect that heightened sense of muscle protein synthesis. You know, you're still in that afterburn effect for still that, you know, 18 to 24, maybe even up to 36 hours, depending on how new you are to lifting and all that good stuff, or if you're enhanced in any way. But as far as just optimal recovery and optimal muscle building, now you've got this 5 to 6 hour window. So if you eat your pre-workout meal at 10 o'clock, wait an hour, you work out at 11 o'clock and you work out for an hour. So now it's noon. You basically have 3 to 4 hours to get in that post-workout meal, whatever that looks like, just adequately make sure that you're recovering well and building muscle well, etc. So I just kind of wanted to dive into that. The other thing that kind of affects muscle protein synthesis spikes is just the ingestion of protein. And so this is where one of the big myths come in, and you can check out the new video that I'll upload this week, where I'm kind of clarifying all this. There's a lot of people that say you can't ingest, you know, there's no point in having 50 grams of protein or 100 grams of protein at once because your body can't ingest it all. It just pees out the excess. Our bodies are smarter than that. That does not happen. Your body's always going to use whatever it needs, and if it needs to, you know, let it float around the bloodstream, or it needs to store stuff, it's going to do that, and it's going to make it happen. But what doesn't occur is muscle protein synthesis does not spike higher by having, there's an upper threshold for that. So usually between 10 to 15 grams of protein every time you ingest it is kind of like beneficial. 25 is kind of that magic number. Like, hey, every time you eat a meal, you know, have 25 grams of protein, you know, minimum with it. I don't have very many clients, female or male, that are under kind of like the 115, 120 gram mark of protein. Usually want a gram. You can do a gram per pound of lean body mass, or 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So 2.2 kilograms is a pound. You can do that math to kind of calculate for yourself, because lean body mass is kind of tough. So I kind of lean towards that 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, which obviously if you can do the math and it's 2.2 as a pound, that upper limit is a gram per pound of body weight. It's usually a little bit more than you need, but it's not the end of the world. It's always better to overshoot than to be under. That being said, the peak of those muscle protein synthesis spikes happens around that 25 to 30 gram mark. Some people even up into the 50 range, kind of like in that outlier, but the research shows pretty much nothing beyond 50 grams is going to increase that muscle protein synthesis spike, which usually is not a big deal. I mean, if you're eating 70 to 80 grams of protein in a meal and that works for you and your schedule, that's fine, but you're not getting a larger muscle protein synthesis spike. So you're not recovering more efficiently or adequately or building more muscle by having, you know, 4 meals of, you know, 80 grams of protein versus doing 8 meals of 30 grams of protein. If anything, the research actually kind of shows to break that up more often, so that instead of getting, you know, if you have 3 big meals a day of 100 grams of protein, you're still going to get that same spike of, you know, that 25 to 30 grams would, versus now if you spread out that 25 to 30 grams over 5 or 6 meals, now you're getting those spikes more often throughout the day. So that's kind of where I lead, you know, clients to do. Not only, I mean, it's hard to fit the schedule, but if you do, you know, 2 shakes and a bar, you know, spread out things like that, then having those spikes throughout the day actually becomes a lot more achievable. So yeah, I dive a lot more into this this new YouTube series that I'm starting. Right now it's just called the Let's Clarify YouTube series. I think that there's a lot of myths rolling around. I enjoy myth busting. I enjoy talking about what society, what the media, what professionals in the space, quote unquote professionals for those of you just listening, what they kind of push, how they push their agenda, and things like that. And kind of taking like, hey, here's kind of where they're right, but here's kind of where they became wrong. Or, hey, here's these 2 different camps that don't believe they can be a both and type situation when they absolutely can. And so I try to kind of bridge that gap and show like, hey, here's where they're right, now here's where they're wrong, and kind of how you can fit that into your lifestyle. So episode 1 is just all about protein, different formula calculations to kind of help you be able to calculate it for yourself, and kind of some of the myths floating around. Protein, is it bad for you? Are your kidneys going to be shot? Which, no, they're not. But, I mean, there's a lot to unpack. And so I just decided to start a new YouTube series about it. And hopefully it gets some good traction. There's a lot of good information that I enjoy covering, and a lot of misinformation that some of this podcast that I want to kind of air out. So, yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm super excited with all the feedback I've been getting. It's been a joy, and this is a lot of fun and a good outlet for me, and it gives me great content to post to social media and all that stuff as well. Everybody's been asking great questions and interacting, so if you're on YouTube, comment down below. Give me some ideas of questions and concerns you have. If you've heard different research, put it in the comments, etc. If you're listening on the podcast, feel free to shoot me a DM. Be able to chat with me on Instagram, Mike_fit-by-strength. I'd love to chat with you there, and be able to be able to discuss. If you got other questions, things you want me to cover on the podcast, things you want me to cover on YouTube, let me know. I'm here to serve all of you, and so I don't want to get to a point where I'm just making up questions on my own that you don't necessarily care about. So if there's something I've missed, something you want more clarification on, feel free to reach out. I'm an open book. Yeah, if you're interested in online coaching, you can absolutely DM me and reach out. We've got bit.ly links on our website to be able to fill out applications and schedule calls. The deadline to sign up for the March 7th start date, we can extend it to Wednesday or Thursday. We can get programs done in time. That way, those of you listening, gives y'all an opportunity to still sign up for this next Monday. But yeah, I mean, God's been super good to bless us with the clients that we have, and Angela has, I think, like 55 sales calls booked this week. So prayers for her, but man, we're excited for how things are growing and just the people we're able to help. So hopefully that can be you too. And if you have any questions, just reach out, and we'll talk to you next time.